Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekend podcast here on Four Lads a Dream. My name is Stevie Clifford. I'm your host for tonight, joined by Andrew Stewart and Andy McKellar. I would love to say that we are all jolly and delighted to be here, but unfortunately, we are not talking about Happy Rangers things. As unfortunately, Andy McKellar, we spoke earlier in the week about the accounts, and we thought that was miserable enough. But later that evening, we dropped off what can only be described as a bit of a stinker at Pataudry. What's your immediate thoughts on the aftermath of that game? And then, Andrew Stewart, I'll come to you and ask you the exact same.
Yeah, who thought a £17 million loss would have been the highlight of the week? The thing about Pataudry was I don't think any of it was a shock. I think we got kind of what we were expecting. We know it's a tough place to go. But at the same time, this team gave us no confidence. There was no reason for us to sit here as fans and believe that we were going to go up there and get anything. And I think everybody else was feeling the same. Neutrals, Aberdeen fans, I think they were confident. And I think their team would have fancied it as well, quite frankly. And that's the way it played out. I think we all hoped it would get a result that might just kick things down the road a wee bit, delay some of the reaction that we've seen since and some of the, questions of the manager and all these sort of things that are just going to be constant now, I think, unless we start picking up big time and getting back to the sort of form we showed nearly a year ago now. So it's been a while. But yeah, the thing is about the performance as well, without going too deep into it, I don't think it was a bad performance. I think that's where we are. I don't think we as a team played below our level or played badly. I think we had a run-of-the-mill performance, a fairly mediocre one. And if we are at that sort of level, it's not good enough when you play these games anymore. We can't coast through these games and beat Aberdeen and beat Kelly away and these sort of things, because despite the money and despite the promises that we'd be better in October, November time, our level just isn't good enough. When we're at it, we're not bad. We've seen that with Malmo and Stoya. But when we're not at it, we're a very, very average team. And that's what we watched on Wednesday night.
Andrew, rather sobering from Andy, but you can't really disagree. What's your thoughts in the aftermath of that Pataudry performance?
Again, just to echo Andy saying, there was no shock factor to it. As soon as the final whistle went, it was almost it's over now, and we've the inevitable has happened, because it did feel like that. It felt in the kind of the week leading up to it that, I mean, when we're going well, I look forward to a game. It's counting the days, looking ahead to it. But it was kind of like I didn't want to talk about football in the days leading up to it, because I just felt this is marked in our calendar for a slip up, because we've seen it before. And Rangers didn't surprise me in the way I wanted them to. I wanted them to go out and look good, to look dangerous. I maybe started to believe in Aberdeen might come at us and that might give us more of a chance, because we do look like a team that, these European oppositions, for example, when they come at us, we can maybe hit them in the counter. But we didn't even see any of that, so it was just shocking, but in a not surprising shocking. It was just I felt like I've just touched an electrical wire and I've just blown myself away. That kind of just horror.
I don't know what's worse, having to relive that Pataudry performance, Andrew, or you telling us that you've never seen Still Game. I've got honestly shocked Andy and I to the core before we started this recording, folks. But
I said this in confidence.
Andy said that this wasn't a bad performance. This is our level now. And that struck me somewhat. And Andrew, I'm going to stick with you and ask you, because I was going to ask, was it really one of our better performances? Or is Andy right? Is this just where this team is now? Are we only capable of 20-odd minutes per game? Because statistically, for the last 6 months, footballing-wise, that's all we're getting.
I mean, yeah, it's I didn't think about that until Andy said it. It's a really good point to make, because it really does make you think now in retrospect, going back to games where, maybe if we have won, but you're not convincing, holding on in games, and you go, well, that's just other teams in Scotland can do that. They can win against a Motherwell or a St Mirren and maybe be under the cosh in the last 10 minutes. But we're starting to maybe take that now as just what happens. Other teams will throw everything at us in the last 10 minutes and forget, no, we're Rangers. We do like to have games wrapped up. Granted, going back to a period in games where we wrap them up, I maybe might have been 15, 16 at the time, and I'm 22 now. It's bad reading now, looking back in retrospect, as Andy pointed out. From I don't know. I don't want to say this is where we are now, but to admit it, I think almost brings a sobering feeling that yes, this rebuild is going to be a real tough beast, and I suppose it leads you into a whole other line of questioning in terms of managerially and where the club is going as a whole.
Yeah, we're going to come to Philip Clement, Andy, in a wee second, but I'm keen to know. It's not that I disagree with that sentence, because everything about it is correct. Maybe there's a part of me that just doesn't want to believe it, that this is where this team is at the moment. However, I will throw something out there. I spoke about this a wee bit this morning. Every game we've won this season has been more or less close, with the exception of domestically, with the exception of Ross County at home, and then obviously the 2 European games, Malmo and Bucharest. The other games, Andy, I'm thinking top of my head, you look at the likes of Motherwell at home, at Hampden, a bit of Tierney magic, Ben's one in the corner. You're looking at Dundee United away, Tom Lawrence bit of magic, Hibs at home, Tom Lawrence bit of magic. Even if we look really recently, Tierney, a couple of bits of magic for his goals against St Johnstone at home. And mid into the weekend, we're toiling one each. Dessers with a wee bit of magic to set up a goal. And then even the other night, Aberdeen, it's a Bayrami moment that sets up and he scores a goal. And that's perhaps what I'm getting to is here, that, and this is coming on slightly to the Clement factor, is we're not playing as a team. We're not blowing teams away. We're not a passing unit. We're not a well set up. We're relying on individual moments. And that, for me, is showing in the performances, which we don't, as Chris Boyd says, we don't control games. We don't bully teams. We don't, boss possession. We play for moments. Is that fair?
Stevie, you've actually hit on a point. I sat here and took notes in the Aberdeen game, and it was one of the things that I came across, is that most of our wins, or they've been relying on players, moments of magic, something happening out of the blue. As you said, they're not patterns of play. They're not us cutting teams apart and creating 2 or 3, absolute sitters. I mean, I think if we go back to last year, Dessers was criticised quite a bit for missing a lot of chances. We're no longer even creating those chances this year. We're relying, and you said, as Tom Lawrence covering one into the top corner, or Bajrami against Aberdeen. We're waiting on individuals to get the ball and go and do something. That's not a plan. That's not a structure. It's not a style. That's just guys thrown out in a park, and we hope we've got a bit more quality than the opposition, which at times we have. That'd be a bit of magic from Tierney against Motherwell, the bit of magic from Tom Lawrence against Hibs. That's enough to win the game and get 3 points. But then when you come up against a Kilmarnock away and Aberdeen, suddenly those moments are harder to come across. And if you don't get them, where does a goal come from? Because if you look at it, you've rhymed off quite a number of our goals there. And all these winning goals have been, as you say, individual moments rather than team moments. So you said it would come back to the manager, and I think it does. I mean, if we're looking at this now as a year down the line, pre-season with his own players, we need to be, I think we said it a couple of weeks ago, we need to see the progress now. We need to see the fruits of what Clement has been doing with this team and what he's trying to build with this team. And on the park at the moment, it's just not there. As you said, it's individuals put out, and we hope that one of them is slightly better than the opposition. And that seems to be the game plan at the moment.
So here's some context. 91% of home games Philip Clement has won. He's got a very good record in the league at home. He's won 2 out of 10 away trips. So this is a question. It comes down, and it's a difficult one. It's the elephant on the room. In the room, Philippe Clement himself as manager, Andrew Stewart, where are you on this? I'll ask Andy the same question, and then I'll give my own thoughts on it. But where are you on Philippe Clement? It's been the hot topic of the last 24 or so hours or so. We're always going to get a reaction. We're 9 points behind second place. We're closer to 8th. The reaction has been quite predictable. Where do you stand?
Context for me individually is that I have been known to, hang on till it's well too late. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of Beale, but I was still kind of, maybe seeing the long-term picture at that time. And then as soon as he gets sacked and we brought in a manager that seemed to, the team certainly took an upward trajectory. I went, wow, it's a lot better than what we had, and maybe kind of jumped to my senses. I'm certainly, I'm no longer sitting on the fence. I'm starting to see the signs that this isn't working, and unless the manager can change it, we're in real trouble in terms of the footballing side of the club. I think the club as a whole has got a lot of work to do to steady the ship. But on the footballing side of it, I think with the manager, he's got a heck of a job to do, and he's now got the thinnest of tight ropes to get himself through as far as he wants to take this. He still believes in the story that he keeps telling us. I'm starting to think that story in the book is running out of pages, to be perfectly honest. Of course, it doesn't change how I feel about the weekend. I still hope that we can go and win and take it to the final to whoever we're going to play. But it's hard to stay positive, and that's something I try to be. So if I'm struggling to stay positive, I think that tells you the bigger picture.
Andy, Philippe Clement, obviously we're all very emotive after a moment like midweek. Where are you on him?
I think ordinarily after the start of the season we've had a defeat like that on the back of the Kelly game, I think the manager gets sacked. I think the problem that we've got is if we sack the manager now, what do we do? Who's there to appoint his replacement? When's it going to happen? And is there anything to be gained by, letting the same people that have made a bit of a mess of things, as we've spoke about with the finances and the club's direction, letting them pick somebody else and committing more money to a new manager? So we need to see where he's going quickly. That starts on Sunday again. Feel as if we're saying that every week. We need to start seeing something. But the headache I think that we have is if we sack him, I don't think it improves anything. It doesn't fix anything. And in actual fact, if it's the same guys that are going to be making the appointment in the relative short term, in the absence of a chief executive or sporting director, you'd be better throwing an interim manager in there. You'd be better doing a Stephen Davis, Kevin Thompson type thing to the end of the season or near the end of the season when you've got a proper structure in place to get a replacement in. So I don't think either is a particularly good option. But I think we spoke about this before. We need to see progress. If we're not, this season probably wasn't going to be about challenging Celtic and winning a title or getting ridiculously close. It was about improving on the squad and the performances we had at the end of last season. And we've just not done that. As you said, Stevie, 2 wins away for home. It was ridiculous. And if he doesn't fix that quick, then regardless of the situation at the club, he's not going to be around much longer, because you just can't continue like that, especially not at Rangers.
All fair, and I like that. There's a different opinion, Andy, to the one I'm about to give, and this may not surprise people who know me. I don't have the biggest bit of patience. My issue is that I'm not seeing anything that I can galvanise behind. And it's almost like right up until that Motherwell home game, we were playing well. I remember that Hearts 5-0 victory, and I was literally on the gantry waxing lyrical. And I think I tweeted quite a few times, this is unbelievable. This football's great. And it's just fallen off a cliff. The injury to Cortez, the injury to Ridvan, it just killed last season stone dead almost immediately. And this season, I'm waiting for that kind of form. I'm waiting for the desire. I'm waiting for the players. And it just doesn't come. And I watched them during the week, and it looks to me like they're going through the motions. And yeah, I get it. When you get defeats, it always looks like that. But I said it after Kilmarnock, something's not right. It doesn't look right. I don't think the players are giving 100%. And then you try and balance it with context and listen to what Andy's there, and I think Andy makes some really good points. But there's nothing to base keeping him, because we're not seeing it on the park domestically. It's really bad. We're going into Sunday in Motherwell, and it's a toss of a coin of, are we going to get out on top? And it's not a case of going there and winning, or you're hoping to win the match, but it's not a case of going there thinking we can win 3-4-0. It's going there going, this is going to be tight. I'm hoping we can get through. And I just kind of think that's where we are at the moment. I don't think there's anything we can base the football on as being good. I don't see much style. He's so rigid in his formation and his selections. And that's the real issue. So the next thing I was going to ask you is how we change this. And it's like a $1 million question of, regardless of us, I don't think he's going to do the things that we would suggest he's going to do. I think he's so rigid in his thinking and his formation that I don't think he changes, because it just seems to me like when I watch Rangers, I see the same things happening all the time. And I don't know if you boys will agree with this, but Aberdeen during the week, like there was points where there was players lining up outside their box to take shots. And it doesn't seem to me like Raskin to get out to that first goal. It doesn't seem to me like he's breaking his neck to be blocking it, to get out there, to really push on. You cross it in, there's 3 guys unmarked. It gets flicked on. We're all standing watching. It just doesn't seem to me like this Rangers team is really invested properly in what we are trying to do. Clement spoke about it a wee bit today about, investing in our principles and things like that. And he feels like we've lost our way. I get it watching it, and that's my biggest concern. I don't see reasons to keep him. And I think deep down we all know that it's probably at the point where it can't come back, because all that's going to happen is you could realistically win Motherwell, Olympiacos, and then go to Hearts at home and drop points, and everybody would be the exact same position we are now, because I think it's too far. So I'm going to throw this back at you boys and ask you, how do we change this? How do you flip the mood, Andy? How do you get back on track? How do you almost, if we turned the switch off against Motherwell 6 months ago, and that's where this began to unravel, how do you flick that switch back on to make this like it was before?
Absolutely no idea. And just to quickly revisit the point, if what I was saying was, I'm not saying we shouldn't sack him on, but what I'm saying is, if we sack him, we're going, there's nobody there to really appoint. If that's the best defence of the manager we've got, it's not much of a defence. It's nothing to do with progress or style or the team or where we're heading under him. It's basically because we're that much of a mess. We don't trust the guys to pick a replacement. So if that's the best defence we've got, it's not much of a defence of the manager at all. How do we fix it? No idea. Can the manager do some things to fix it? I think he can. I think he can drop the captain and play Casemiro. I think he can try and get Bajrami into the number 10 position. I think he can change his formation. But as you said, he seems absolutely wedded to the formation. He's got his favourite players that play almost every week. So in the absence of that, I really don't know how you fix it. I don't think the squad's good enough to be doing anything. The front 4 of really poor quality, mostly. Bajrami's get a bit of football about him, but I don't think we're getting the best out of him out in the wing. Desser's a number 9. We're just seeing the weaknesses every week now. It's just, you can't carry that for weeks on end. Czerny's okay. He'll give you moments again, but he's a moments player. He's not a guy that's going to dominate the game and carve open defences and do stuff like that. And Lawrence in the bigger games, especially and away from home, is more or less a passenger for 80 odd minutes. Might come up with something like Dundee United, but more often than not, you're carrying too many players that just aren't dominating games and doing what they need to be doing for Rangers. So I don't envy Clement, and I don't envy any of the other guys higher up thinking, how do we fix this? Because this isn't a flick of the switch, I don't think, with the team we've got. This is something that's going to take time. But the manager has to start doing part of it just now. On the basis he's not going to be sacked before Sunday, he's got to start doing something to get more out of this team. Because you saw against Stoya, when the hunger is there and the tempo is there, they can compete and they can perform. but then they turn up at the weekend domestically and it's flat as a pancake. That's the issue we've had for 3 or 4 years, if not longer. And we really need to start finding a much higher base level than what we've shown all season, because almost all of the stats, whether it's expected goals scored, now goals conceded as well, everything is trending in the wrong direction. And if that isn't fixed, it's going to end one way. If it's not this weekend, as you said, Stevie, we might win a game or two, and then when we drop points, it'll be all hell breaks loose again. So I can see us having some familiar chats in a couple of weeks' time if it doesn't change.
Andrew, can he fix this?
It's bad when I'm sitting there going, Motherwell in the League Cup semi-final. Who was another manager that had to struggle with that? And I thought straight back, and I'm thinking, Jesus, Louis Moult, dink over Jack Hannock, Motherwell 2-0, put us out of the League Cup, and Caixinha gets sacked after the game the weekend after against Kelly. I don't like the similarities I'm seeing. I know there was talk about like the Van Bronckhorst timing and stuff like that for when he was sacked. And it's like we're stuck in a vicious cycle, and I don't like it. The happy side of me goes, well, when Matondo comes back, we'll be fine and we'll start winning games and looking good, and he'll get hat tricks and we'll win the league. But also, I know that's not going to happen. But it's one of these game at a time things, and it's sad that it's gone from Steven Gerrard during an undefeated season saying we take it a game at a time and we focus on each game that comes ahead. Taking it a game at a time, thinking, is he going to pass this test? And that's a shocking turn of events that we've gone from high to very, very low.
Matondo hat-tricks league win is a kind of excitement that I expect of somebody that's never seen Still game and doesn't realise the way that the world actually works, according to Craig Lang. Interesting from today's press conference, Andy. We know how this has went online. We know the social media reaction. James Tavernier tells supporters today, I feel I have been pretty good this season. He goes on to add, I've lost it a wee bit. Obviously, there has been a bit of a dry spell, if you want to say, in goals, but I'm trying to create as many chances as possible and try to reduce as much as we can going against our goal. That comes 2 days after James Tavernier is heavily involved in Aberdeen's winner, to the point where I wouldn't blame him. There's lots of things that went wrong, but he's certainly heavily involved. I'll throw a bit of stat at you as well, which may certainly betray the eye test a little bit. But in terms of chances created for Rangers in the Premiership in 24-25, James Tavernier sits top on 26. Chances created per 92.8. That didn't surprise me. That absolutely shocked me when I seen it. However, when you think back to the other night, there was chances created by James Tavernier. The next person on the chances created list is 11, with Vaclav Cherny at 1.8 per 90. So the question is, because we know the reaction to that, and when he said, I've felt pretty good this season, I felt I've been pretty good this season, I could feel my eyes rolling in my head, because I don't feel that way watching James Tavernier this season. I've got to be honest with you. So the question to you is he right? Are we too harsh as a fan base? Or is he so accustomed now to not the standards we expect?
I don't think there's any doubt that James Tavernier has regressed quite badly over the last 18 months or slightly more. I think if you were to go back and watch some of his performances a couple of seasons ago, you'd see a very different player. The stat that you read out does shock me. I'm surprised he's creating so much, because one of the things I felt this season is that we're no longer getting the attacking output that we used to rely on. It feels as if that's dropped off, and he's never been great defensively. So if you're not getting that high quality attacking output and he's not great defensively, you start to wonder, what is he bringing to the team? And I think we've looked all right when Casson Weaver's played. Sterling, we need to see more of. I don't know if he's the answer at right back, but I don't think there's any doubt that Tav has been poor, or he's at least been a level below what we would expect of him. So I would question the value of him in the team. I think, as I said an answer or two ago, I would have Casson Weaver in there and give him a run of games. He's a young guy who can improve. Did well when he went to centre back at the weekend. And Tav, I just think, as you said, he was involved in the Aberdeen goal again. Something simple like putting the ball out the back or taking a better touch, and he stops it stone dead for the Aberdeen player to put it across for a goal. And if that was a one-off, you can say, do you know what? It was unlucky. I knew what he tried to do. But it's these kind of involvements we're seeing all too often, quite often in big games. And I think the criticism, I mean, you get some over-the-top stuff that's just not needed, but he's definitely not at the level he used to be, and I don't think he's at the level we need for someone to be starting for us at this moment, to be honest.
Andrew, it touches on a little bit of a comment that Andy made right back at the start, which struck a chord with us, and he said, I don't think we're bad, this is just our level. So let's flip that on James Tavernier. Do we expect miracles of him, and is he playing well, and this is just his level?
Tav, especially this season, I'd said previously in other shows that I thought this season would be a step too far. I think it was a good time for him to move on from himself. I think, with Goldson going, I think it was a perfect time for him to take a step away. But that didn't happen. Obviously, he's still here, still the club captain. Some of these comments he makes does very much strike me as somebody that's happy to know that he's in, the tail end of his career and he's earning 35 grand a week, essentially. I would be a lot happier about myself if I was doing that, regardless of what I'm doing on a Wednesday or Thursday or a Saturday, Sunday. Knowing fine well that I'm bringing that in. But, I'm not James Tav. I don't earn that money. I'm a Rangers supporter and I don't see what I want to see from a Rangers captain. The whole thing of the quote, putting yourself second to this club is the only time you're allowed to come second, that's paraphrasing, by the way. I don't have it on my wall like the Rangers Museum does. But I think that's almost just gone out the window at times, especially in those kind of players. I mean, it's the comparison of the experienced head happy to be winding down versus the young up and comer who I think has a lot of energy to burn, like Big Cass is what I call in the ratio. I would want to see more of him again. I'm the same. I think that there needs to be a passing of the baton, and it happened 4 years too late. I think we should have been looking. We should have been future proof in this position a long time ago. These are mistakes you could go into a whole other show on where we've taken missteps in future proofing the success of the 55th league title. And it's just we're reaping those lack of rewards, we'll say, from those missteps.
What I would say about James Tavernier is that James Tavernier at the awards ceremony earlier on in the year was asked his best moment of the season, his best goal of the season. I expected it thoroughly to be the goal that won Rangers a League Cup, and it turned out that his favourite goal was the one against Hibs, which made him the top scorer in British football history and defensively. And it struck a chord to me. I've grown up with captains that are different. Captains that would have answered a question like today and said, my form is irrelevant because it's about the team and it's about results and it's about what's happening on the park for Rangers Football Club at this moment in time. I would settle quite happily for playing terribly if we're winning. That's the kind of players that I grew up with. That was Alan McGregor after the Hamilton game, which was a 1-1 draw, a very famous clip. And he says, when McGregor was man of the match, weirdly saved a penalty, I think, as well. And they asked him, you must be pleased with your performance. He says, no, I don't care. I'd settle for being rubbish as long as we win. That is the attitude that I expect from a Rangers captain or any Rangers player. And I just think that James Tavernier, and I'm not saying necessarily in his head that he's wrong, but I just think you need to read the room a wee bit, and I don't think he does it particularly well. However, that's a debate for a bigger time. Andy McKellar, thank you. 2 pods in a week. You're becoming our new regular. Thank you very much for your time.
Nope, nice to be on. I can disappear for 6 months now.
Well, just like Rangers the last 6 months. So, yeah, perfect. Andrew Stewart, always a pleasure. Please go and watch Still Game. Why has that not happened?
I'll be going to watch my regular viewing of the Matondo highlights from the previous season.
Well, once you've finished that 5 minutes, go and check out Still Game. There's plenty of time after that. Folks, part 1 of Four Lads A Dream Weekend Show is now over. We'll be joined by host Andrew Anderson with Kenny and Shona in part 2, where they guys will have their say, which will just be 25 minutes of Kenny going red and talking. But we hope you enjoy it. Thanks for joining part 1.
Hello, and welcome to the second half of your Rangers Weekend podcast here on Four Lads Had a Dream. After that just lovely intro from Stevie and the rest of the lads. We're obviously hugely excited to pick over the bones from the frankly abysmal performance that we had against Aberdeen just this past Wednesday. I don't need to ask you guys how you're both feeling about this. I suspect I know the answer, unfortunately. But Shona, I guess, at least briefly give us your thoughts on at least where this leaves Rangers and probably more particularly Phil Clement.
It's very hard, isn't it? Look, you asked for certain things in a game against Aberdeen. We all knew that the players had to get up for this. They had to win this game. And it was complete opposite. I've always said this, and I think what we're really struggling with is the physicality with our players at the moment. We ask them to go and win the battle. We don't see that. We ask them for a fight. We ask them for desire. We ask them to be hungry, play for the Rangers shirt, and we're not seeing any of that at this moment in time. There's so many players there that you can make accountable for so many mistakes that we're making continuously over and over again. Playing the same formation week in, week out, same substitutions. I think at the weekend there we had 3 right backs on at the one time. That just cannot happen at our football club, where you want players to play in the right position. So, look, there's just, for me, it's to do with the physicality. We're struggling with set pieces, crosses into the box, it's the same goals over and over again, and we're particularly getting overrun in midfield. It is evident to see when we go with 2 in midfield. What the other opposition do is they just sit with 4 in midfield, and it's really, really hard to break down. All the rest of the teams in the SPFL are very good at getting back into position and nullifying our threat. Still think we're playing far too deep. When we do play further forward, when the defence gets forward, the midfield gets forward, and the attack gets forward, we're much better. The 3 players up front, or the 4 players, should I say, are not pressing enough. If you press well, you'll force the other opposition into mistakes. We're not doing these sort of things, and we're just culpable of our own mistakes at times. And I think it's evident to show. And it was a really, really disappointing result for not only for Clement but for those players. I think this weekend is huge for these players, and I mean not just Clement but also these players. I think there was a lot of things that happened. I looked at the stats at the weekend. They had 20 shots on goal, 6 on target. I think we had 17, but only 3 on target. I think you look at the aerial duel battle, when I talk about the physicality and winning that battle in the middle of the park, they had far more aerial duels than us. Yeah, we had, I think, double the amount of passes in the game, more possession in the game. So it just goes to show that if you're not up for the battle, you're not up for the physicality of this game, then unfortunately teams in the other side of the SPFL, they'll go against you, and more likely what they'll do is they'll force us into mistakes and they'll force us to concede goals. So it was a very disappointing result. I was absolutely fuming after the game. I don't think these players understand sometimes what it means to play for Rangers, and that's a big question for me.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything you've said there, Shona. Just a poor performance where Rangers were outmuscled and unfortunately, even when the score was 0-0 or 1-1, Kenny, I don't think we ever realistically looked like we were going to win it, just based on past experience.
No, I didn't think we were winning the game at any point, actually. It didn't surprise me at all when we lost the second goal. It's a howler. It's just a shocking goal to lose. Fed up looking at absolute calamities over and over and over again in our back, our back line. But no, I didn't go into the game on Wednesday night with any great confidence at all. I genuinely felt we were going to get beat. I just don't think we're playing well enough. I think Andy, in the previous part of the show there, has just made a great point where he said that actually this is just our level. This is what this Rangers team is. This is how good it is. You'll get outliers like Malmo, Stoya Bucharest, and outliers in the other direction like Lyon and Celtic away, but that's just our level. My son said to me the other night, he said, and it's the biggest worry that we should all have, we're just becoming one of the other teams in this league. He said that's exactly the way he feels about it. And I kind of get what he means. I totally understand that. And frankly, Andrew, the form is so bad, the performances are so bad, that what we need to do is address that immediately. The only person that can do that is Philippe Clement himself. He's the one that has to fix that. And very quickly, going by his press conference today, he feels about as secure as you can possibly be in a job. Going by his comments today, which is absolutely fine. I understand the situation. But when he turned around and says he hasn't talked to anyone at that board for a couple of weeks, well, bear in mind we've had Kilmarnock and this nonsense to endure this week as well, plus the accounts that were out during the week, and he's not talked to the board, and nobody at board level have bothered their backside talking to him. I find it mind-blowing. I've got to be honest. I just find the whole thing just utterly lacking in leadership. It's the only thing I'd give Philippe Clement credit for at this minute in time, Andrew, is that he is trying to lead the football club on his own, by the looks of it. And that's my kind of take on it, Andrew. I wasn't surprised at all on Wednesday. I thought the best we would come out with is a draw. Didn't surprise me when we get beat. And sadly, if I'm being 100% brutally honest about it, I thought Aberdeen were better in every department than we were. Every single department. They've spent £2 million in the summer, Andrew. They've got a new manager bounce, and they're flying. They've got 14 wins in 15. Meanwhile, we're stoating about looking like a bang average Premier League side. So it needs fixed.
Yeah, as for Shona, mate, I can't argue with any of that. In fairness to Phil, I mean, it's not like there's an abundance of people above him at the football club right now. There's so many empty slots at executive level that, who can you talk to? So it is unfortunately a very depressing situation we find ourselves in, because I don't think there's going to be too many voices arguing that Phil Clement should, live out the rest of the 4 years of his contract, even at this point. I think you'd be surprised to find someone who could argue for the next 4 weeks. But the issue that we have is we've been in exactly this position the last 2 years in a row. We had Gio, then we had Beale, again, both managers who reached the end of their time at Rangers. And so while we can get rid of Phil Clement, and to be honest, I think that would be the best move, given that I don't see a situation in which he turns this around. If he's continuously being stubborn, sticking to the same old style of play and team formation, etc., same group of players who have continuously let us down when it comes to the big matches, when it comes to performing on that big stage. What can you do? You replace them with a different manager, and we've seen this story before. We get a bounce, we pick it up for a few weeks, we think the new manager's got everything in the bag, and then, post-winter break, wheels will fall off again. So I don't think it'd be fair, as I say, to put a new manager, like a new permanent manager, into this position right now, because you end up with that new manager carrying all the baggage of the last season into the next one. We start the next season on a downer, and the cycle repeats again, because as soon as there's a bad result, there's already a body of evidence that says this manager doesn't have what it takes. So it's nothing new, I think, to anyone who's been listening to this podcast. You know, the lack of direction and strategy, forward-thinking strategy from this board at the moment, because it has left us in this situation, not for the first time. We obviously shown a look ahead to the Motherwell game. Now, we talked when we were previewing the Aberdeen game about how these two matches were obviously crucial, must-win games. Given the result at Aberdeen, can he survive a loss at Motherwell? Is that even worth thinking about?
No, I don't think he can. I think what's that now, 2 away wins since February. I think you've got to go into this Motherwell game. I think there's got to be a lot of questions asked. I think when Clement came out and said that was one of the better performances that we've had this season, I think it's absolutely delusional to turn around and say that. We had one shot on target in the second half, and that was Barami's goal. That's not good enough. Absolutely not good enough. Not for Rangers standards anyway. And I think that's what we need to get back to. I think these players need to have a real look at themselves. I think we need to get back to the Rangers standards. If he wants to win this game, or the players want to win this game on Motherwell, show the fans something that they've been lacking. Fight for that shirt. Show what it means to be Rangers. Do you understand what it means to play for this football club? I want every player on that pitch on Sunday to come out and show us that, because, and again, we'll just be talking about exactly the same things over and over again. I don't think Clement has helped himself. Like I said, 3 right backs on during midweek, dropping probably what our most in-form, I would say, player this season in Yefty. And for the biggest game, which arguably it was probably one of Clement's biggest game that he's had at Rangers at this moment in time regarding the situation. I think we're closer to 8th place than what we are to 2nd place at this moment in time. I know we're going into a semi-final, but I think there's so many questions that need to be asked. And I think, look, we're entitled to ask these ones. And I think, look, for me, it's the midfield. We need to stop. If you want to put, I think it would be better to have Diamandi in the number 10 position, as much as Tom Lawrence has came up with the assist. I think it was yesterday as well for the Barami goal. Look, I think Diamandi would offer you a little bit more, because he's not going to change. We know that he's not going to change the formation, right? We know that. I've said to him, like, when you go against these teams that are going to sit in behind you, you need to have 3 in midfield. I stick by that. I think that will make sure that you win that battle in the middle of the park and be able to create more open spaces. So I think you'll have to go with Diamandi in the number 10. At least Diamandi can be a bit more box to box than what Tom Lawrence can be. And I just think there's so many things that you think about. Like, for instance, I think they just need to question themselves and ask themselves, look, are they playing to their full potential? Can they be stand up and be counted for when it comes to games like this? And just go and show and prove what it takes. I think Ross County now are the only team lower to Rangers to score away goals from home. And believe it or not, Motherwell have created a higher number of quality of chances this season than what we have. So, look, Motherwell are going to make it tough. They made it tough for Celtic at the weekend. I think Lennon Miller had another great game for them. So, look, and it's somebody that Rangers have been looking out for, but I don't think at this moment in time we can afford him. So I think it'll be a case of trying to get him in the summer in a pre-contract. But look, regards to the game at the weekend, I don't think they realise, and it's going to be toxic. I'm telling you, the fans will get on top of the as much as they're like 20, 50 yards away, but they will get on top of the guys. If there's one more bad performance, I don't know how Clement's tenure at Rangers survives this. So there'll be a lot of, but as I said, I don't think we're going to be sacking him either. So I'm kind of contradicting myself slightly here. But yeah, I think it's more about what can these players offer us at the weekend. I think they've got a lot to prove to these Rangers fans. I do not believe that they're as bad as what they actually are at this moment in time. I do believe that there is quality in there. The problem for me, and I've said this before about the lack of pace on our side, the lack of pace that's in our team is really destroying us in that formation that Clement wants to play. I hope Czerny's back. And I think this, I might have been contradicting myself a few weeks ago when I was talking about Czerny not being able to step up for the games, but McCausland was so far off at the weekend. I would like to see Tom Lawrence come out. I know he's come up with the assists and I know he's come up with goals, but I think we need to be a bit more steady in the middle of the park. Maybe bring Tom Lawrence to be that influence in the second half. And I think, look, I like Casemiro, and he is raw and he is new. He didn't have the greatest of games there at midweek. I think you've got to go back with Yefty at the left-hand side. And I think, look, James Tavernier, he's had his critics. I didn't like the way he came out in the press conference today. About him saying that he said he thinks he's had one of his better seasons so far. Well, I don't know about you, but I think any Rangers player out there that can turn around and say that when we're 9 points behind Aberdeen is another person that's delusional. I think he's been taking the same drugs as Clement, or he's hungover from his birthday party last night. But I mean, he's the second in our team that's created the most amount of chances. So we just need to get back to basics. I think you need to win that battle in midfield. You need to get closer, press better from attack, and in defence, stop making the same stupid mistakes. Again, was that twice from a throw-in yesterday? One of the goals came from a throw-in. Another chance from Aberdeen came from on Wednesday. Another chance came from Aberdeen from a throw-in. So we need to stop these making stupid mistakes. We need to be better. We need to be on the ball a wee bit better. And that's what I would say about the Motherwell game. I think this is a massive game, not just for these players, but for Philip Clement too.
Yeah, I mean, just briefly touching on the point about the chance creation thing as well. It's all well and good to create chances, but we know that we require about 50 to score one goal. And that's not why Tav has been in the team in the past few years. And it's not even necessarily for his defensive capabilities as well. It has been assists and scoring goals. But at the moment, he's doing neither of those. And I mean, I take your point as well about Tom Lawrence setting up the assist. But in terms of the Bayrami goal, I think he assisted that as much as Glenn Kamara assisted Kamaru for his goal in the Europa League when he scored from the halfway line. So, I mean, much as I do value the fact that Tom Lawrence has got us over the line in a few games, we'd be in a worse situation in the league without him. Again, in the big games, I don't think he's delivered. So, I mean, Kenny, that kind of brings us on to our next point. How do you set up this team? Because it's clear that, with this formation, and especially given the situation that we find ourselves in with injuries and players just being, not available for whatever reason, that trying to persist with two wingers when we barely even have one fit doesn't work. I don't think it's fair to the players or indeed to the style of play to keep persisting with that when you just don't have the resources to do so. So something's got to change. How do you think we should be approaching this game?
Well, I said it after the Kamara game on here, Andrew, that he has to change that system. He does. It has to change. I don't think he'll change it for Sunday. I think in a semi-final you can't do that. But so in that respect, how do you go about changing it? Well, I'm a big believer in watching body language, Andrew. And all you need to do is look at the body language of our players and then watch the body language of the opposing team week in, week out. There is no fear. There's no trepidation about playing us. There's no. They're not wary. They know that they can set up in a way. Every team in our league knows that they can set up to stop us, and then hit us on the break or in a transition, whatever way you want to put it. They can, go at pace, and our midfield is nowhere to be found when this happens, and it's putting extra onus on the fullbacks, and it's putting extra onus on the centre backs, and none of those in particular are playing overly well. So it's just causing a repetitive cycle where you can just tell that if a team can weather the storm against us, if we happen to have a storm for the first 15, 20 minutes, which doesn't happen all that often. But if they can, they know they're in the game and they've got a real chance of getting a result against us. So how do you go about Sunday and getting a result? Well, I heard the lads on before us and they said it was a 50-50. It's literally a 50-50. But I did say that before, that just about every game we're playing at the minute feels like a 50-50 game. There is no team in this league wouldn't fancy playing this Rangers team because we're so easy to play against. So I would change the formation, absolutely would. But yeah, I doubt Philippe Clement will do that. So therefore, I hope what he does when he analyses the video of Wednesdays, make a couple of statements, statement decisions. The one statement decision I would make, and Shona won't like this, but I would have Cyril Dessers nowhere near that team. Absolutely nowhere near for Sunday's game. I thought he was hiding in a big, big way on Wednesday night. There was incredible stuff that I watched to the point where, and this is my concern, that I'm a 54-year-old guy and I'm getting apathetic about this. I'm getting bored watching it, where you watch your striker 25, 30 yards behind the winger and jogging to get forward. Then when the ball does get into the box, he runs in behind the centre half and the fullback, and he's 4 yards outside the post, the far post. What on earth is he doing there? Apart from hiding. That's what I would say to you. He is hiding. He doesn't want the ball. And I'm kind of getting really bored of the slightest little touch on him, and he's up moaning at a referee. That is not a Rangers striker, and it never has been. And it's winding me up now. It's actually really beginning to annoy me watching that boy. He isn't good enough, but he could be better. He will score his goals when he's on his streaks. But the issue I have is anybody that's thinking that that boy is giving his all at the minute is deluded. And that manager of ours keeps picking him week in, week out. He's dropped him, what is it, once all season? And even then he had the eye, injury last week. So he was kind of dropped or rested, I beg your pardon. Now, that is my issue. Philippe Clement is now under so much pressure that 95% of the support think that he's a dead man walking in terms of the position he's got, right? So therefore, why is he persistent with playing James Tavernier and Cyril Dessers, two lads that he wanted out the door in the summer, and he's expecting them to do a job for them, for Rangers, and they're just not doing it. It's clear as day that is two of your senior players, guys, that are not performing to the levels that they're capable of. Now, Tavernier has got much more credit in the bank with the support, and I can almost to a certain degree understand it when you're trying to bed in new players, whether it's Casemiro, Dujon Sterling having an injury and stuff like that you're maybe a wee bit wary of changing the right back situation. But the centre forward situation, listen, you could put a kid from the B team in there and he isn't going to do any worse than Cyril Dessers is at the minute. In fact, you could bet your backside that the boy's going to work harder and he's going to try harder and he's going to try to impress his manager. Cyril Dessers is doing none of that at this minute in time. And I don't want to sit here and go overly on the attack on one individual, because the issues are all over the pitch. But you need a striker to do his job at Rangers. We are struggling to score goals, and he is a major part of that. I tend to agree with Shona in terms, very quickly here, guys. I agree with Shona in terms of bringing Bayrami in as a number 10. I would be tempted to play Yefty on the left wing and play Casemiro on the left. And I know he didn't play well. You're absolutely right, Shona. He did not have a good game left back on Wednesday, but things need to change. He has to make a statement. And I think, sadly, at my point at the start of this is about body language. I think he has a number of players in that squad that are not believing in what he's doing. And quite frankly, if he wants to survive at all over the next week or two, certainly in the eyes of the support, whether the board do anything about it or not, he has to make serious decisions about getting 11 players on that pitch that want to play for him, that want to play for Rangers and want to win, because there is a serious lack of heart and commitment and effort and dig and all the things you would expect of a Rangers team at this minute in time. And it's been quite apparent since, you know, we fell off a cliff against Motherwell last season, but this season in particular, it's got worse. I think the effort is even less, and he has to address that. And if he doesn't address that, these players will get in the sack. It's that simple.
Kenny, do you think, like I know I said there about putting Diamandi in the 10, but do you think putting Barami in the 10 and putting somebody like Zach Lovelace out on the left would give you that pace? I know it's quite a big game for Zach Lovelace to come into, but Zach Lovelace has got a lot of pace. He's powerful. He's strong. It's something that we're missing. It's a physicality. At this moment in time, we're getting eased far too many times off the ball. Aberdeen pushed us over the ball so many times. Raskin's been great the last couple of games, but I probably thought that Raskin was probably one of our better players on Wednesday night, but he was poor for the goal. One of the goals he got turned for. He wasn't physical enough. I think there was another chance where Aberdeen had, and even Connor Barron as well. I think Connor Barron, not that I'm saying that he's fallen off a cliff recently, but the last couple of games, look, every player, I'm not going to lie, every player, I don't want to kind of single out these two players, but you talk about the midfield, I just don't think they've been physical. I think every player hasn't been physical enough, especially in those tackles. And I wonder if giving somebody like Zach Lovelace that chance on the left-hand side, where he is strong, physical, and has the pace, which we've been lacking, would make a difference.
He deserves a chance. Whether he'll get the chance in a semi-final, I'm not quite sure, Shona. But the simple fact is, as I said, that when you look at that starting 11 on Wednesday up at Pittodrie, and he starts 3 of his 11 new signings, well, the majority of those players that he didn't, you know, that he started, that were there last season for Wednesday's game, were squad players last year. And it doesn't look as if many, you know, take Tavernier, Butland and Dessers, and the rest were all squad players last year. So, you know, there is a real issue here where you look at it and you think, well, would I put Zach Lovelace on the left-hand side and bring Bayrami in and drop Tom Lawrence? Possibly. But I would also be looking at, I would play Egerman as the number 9. I would absolutely, that front line needs an injection of pace and power in it. So Lovelace and Egerman I can understand. But starting with Tom Lawrence and Cyril Dessers, if Cyril Dessers isn't holding the ball up, and it's not his fault that he's not necessarily holding the ball up in certain areas, because he's not that type of player. But if you can't play others into the game, then you're playing with Cyril Dessers and Tom Lawrence. You're as well playing with 9 men because they're not involved in any way, shape or form. The game just bypasses them completely. So, yeah, I would be very tempted to play Lovelace, but I don't think he will. I think the problem with Clement at this minute in time is, and bear with me again very quickly, I would say one thing about this, that I think I've heard people say he's becoming stubborn with the formation. I think he's actually becoming even more than that. I think he's telling the players that aren't buying into it, I'm that secure here. I don't care what you think. You will do what you're told here. I'm the boss and you will play my way. Which is it's some way to go about it. But if he's absolutely convinced that he's keeping his job, then I can kind of understand what he's trying to do if he's trying to weed out certain players that are just going to undermine him at every opportunity. But yeah, Shona, I would be tempted, but I don't think Clement will.
I think Kenny and Shona, I mean, we're sitting here speculating on what Phil Clement could do in the game. And to be honest, he could throw a curveball. I mean, I don't think anyone was particularly seeing both Tav and Dessers getting dropped for the St Mirren game, especially after a really, good performance. A rarity, unfortunately, in our campaign so far. But he did. Time is very short for Phil Clement to build any kind of trust or relationship back up with the fans. And spoke about the press conference today that he felt that sometimes the demands from the fans can be too high. they have to accept that. They have to live with it. And the problem is, I mean, that is not something that you learn at Rangers. You know that before you come here, because fairly famously, our fans are, let's say, difficult to impress easily. Difficult to, you can win a treble one season, but if you start off badly in the League Cup and the league the next season, it's like, well, what have you done for us lately, though? And that's in the context of a really good previous season. You're coming into it with, not a lot of credit in the bank, and then things don't start well, then it doesn't bode well, quite frankly. And I think to pick up on a point that you guys were making about, do you bring in Zach Lovelace? Do you start bringing in kids from the youth? Lennon Miller's going to be captaining Motherwell this weekend. He's 18. So we can see other teams in the league. And frankly, we're in no position to sneer at Motherwell, given they're only 3 points behind us at the moment. So we've seen other teams, the one that we played the other night, for example, bring in a new manager, bring in a whole host of new players and start working those players to a formation and start working them to play well. We've seen that demonstrated in the Scottish League. It's not rocket science. If it was, Scottish managers wouldn't be able to do it. So there's a philosophy to winning this brand of football that we have in Scotland. Rangers don't look like they grasp even the basics of that at the moment. I think there's room to potentially turn it around, but it's going to take a hell of a run. And we're in a position where, as I said at the start of our little section of this podcast, I don't see changing the manager as being the silver bullet that fixes things. But unfortunately, in the context of football in general, as the manager, you're where the responsibility lies. And I'll acknowledge briefly that Phil Clement is not in exactly the perfect situation as a manager of any football club. I think any manager would struggle in the context that he's been given with a reduced budget, with instructions to reduce the wage structure of the team. And you're just hamstrung before you start. That being said, I don't think these performances have been acceptable, because we've seen other teams in this league demonstrate what you can do with a smaller wage budget than us, and with players who on paper aren't as skilled, but they've demonstrated what happens if you work to a system and play together as a cohesive unit. This team don't look like they're doing that. That's all for us tonight. We hope at the very least it's been therapeutic, if nothing else. I'd like to thank two of my very favourite podders on the Four Lads network. Shona.
Yeah, thank you very much. As I said, it was quite a bit of a surprise tonight just to have a full hour on. So hopefully people can enjoy it and give out their opinions and see what they think of it. So, but no, I enjoyed that one, guys. Thank you.
And Kenny, you didn't go quite as red or rant for the entire half hour as Stevie predicted. So I think we've exceeded expectations, quite frankly. But thank you again, my friend.
No, thank you, Andrew. Just very quickly, the nonsense that we heard from our manager about the expectation levels, and our captain saying that he thinks that he's been pretty good this season, or whatever way he put it. This is all about lowering expectation levels. It's not acceptable. It's not going to happen. Our expectation levels are always going to be this way. You better win things. You better understand it. You better win things. And it's about standards, and the standards that have been set at this club for 150 years plus. So get over yourselves, understand where you are, believe that Rangers are what they're supposed to be. And if you get a little bit of belief, you might start to actually understand where you are and where you're supposed to be and what you might be doing, because this isn't good enough. It's a farce, and it's a joke. But thanks for having me on. And yeah, thanks, Shona, and thanks, Andrew. I'm just a bit hacked off, guys, as you can probably tell. But nah, this isn't good enough.
I don't think anyone could hold that against you, Kenny. I don't think anyone finds the current state of things at Rangers acceptable right now, maybe apart from the players and the managers. But they'll get an education on that, I am sure, from the stands come the weekend if things continue to not be good enough. It's been a pleasure. Obviously, I've thanked my two co-hosts, but I'd like to extend those thanks to Stevie, Andrew, and Andy as well for their bit on the first half. And thank all you guys out there as well, either listening or watching the podcast, because your support helps us do these things. The fact that we've had 6 people on here who've given up their evening for it, we couldn't really put that together back when we first started, but now we're in a position to do that. And we've still got a few in reserve as well. So, we're building a bigger squad than Rangers right now. As ever, it's a pleasure to talk to you. We will be back with you. Shona, I don't know if, just quickly, I don't know if you and Stevie are doing a vlog from Hampden or not.
No, we're not. And this pod's definitely more successful than the Rangers team at this moment in time. So, no, we're not. We don't have access for Hampden this weekend. So,
Sure.
We'll be back. I think we'll be back. I think the next home game, am I right in saying, is the Hearts game? Where we'll be doing something a little bit different for the Hearts game. So Kenny will be doing something a wee bit different alongside Andrew, and so will me and Stevie. So we'll see you back then for the vlog, and tune in for something a wee bit different.
Cool. Well, as ever, we'll be back with the Monday podcast to hopefully be talking about a win over Motherwell to put us into the final of the League Cup. And as ever, stay subscribed. Click, like, subscribe, comment below. Tell us we're all talking nonsense. Give us your reasons on why Phil Clement should actually stay, because he's just around the corner, lads. Don't worry. And we'll look forward to hearing from you. But until we talk to you again, bye for now. Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clyde Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, along with Art of Gold. Thank you for listening or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.